What if I told you the most dangerous person in your life right now is not your enemy? It is not your competition. It is not anyone who has ever wished you harm. It is someone who knows your plans, someone who knows your next move, someone who smiles when you share your dreams and files that information away without you ever knowing. This is Law 2 of the 48 Laws of Power, and by the time this video ends, you will never share your vision the same way again.
She called her best friend, her ride or die, the person she had known since university, the one who had sat with her through every bad interview, every rejection, every late night when the dream felt too big and the bank account felt too small. So when she finally started her business, there was no question. Her best friend became her business partner. No contract, no legal agreement, no awkward conversations about roles or ownership or what happens if things go wrong. Just love, a handshake, and a shared dream. 2 years later, she walked out the door with the client list, the brand contacts, the supplier relationships, and half the audience they had spent 2 years building together. She didn't just lose a business partner. She lost the person she thought knew her best in the world. And the worst part? The signs were always there. She just couldn't see them because love makes you strategically blind. This is Law 2 of the 48 Laws of Power. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use your enemies. And before you hear that and assume this law is asking you to become cold, calculating, or suspicious of every person who loves you, stop. Because like we said with Law 1, there is a version of this law that turns you into someone you don't recognize. And there is a version that makes you untouchable. Today, we are learning the second version. The dangerous misreading of this law is that it tells you to abandon friendship entirely, to wall yourself off, to view every close relationship through a lens of paranoia. That is not strategy. That is trauma wearing a disguise. The real teaching is far more nuanced and far more useful. Here it is. There are different types of trust, and the most devastating mistake a woman can make is giving everyone around her the same level of access, simply because she loves them. Loving someone and giving them unlimited access to your plans, your finances, your vulnerabilities, and your vision. Those are two completely separate decisions, and most women have been taught to treat them as one. Here is the truth they don't put in the self-help books. Your friends want the best for you, most of the time, but they are also human. They carry their own fears, their own quiet insecurities, their own unspoken feelings about a life they haven't yet built. And sometimes not out of malice, but out of very human weakness. The person who loves you most is the one who most quietly hopes you don't outgrow them. Your enemies don't have that problem. Your enemies are already expecting you to be great. They are watching for it. They are bracing for it. And that expectation, that pressure, makes you sharper than any cheerleader ever could. Let me tell you about someone who understood this better than almost anyone in political history. When Abraham Lincoln won the presidential election in 1860, he did something that stunned everyone around him. He didn't fill his cabinet with loyal friends. He didn't reward the men who had campaigned for him or stayed by his side. He didn't choose the safe, comfortable, agreeable people who would protect his confidence and validate his decisions. He filled his cabinet with his fiercest rivals, the men who had run against him, the men who had publicly called him unqualified, the men who had said in newspapers and speeches in rooms full of people that Abraham Lincoln was not fit to lead. His advisors thought he had completely lost his mind. Lincoln said, and this is the part that rarely gets quoted in full, that he needed men around him who would tell him the truth. Men who had no emotional investment in protecting his feelings. Men who would push back, challenge him, and hold him to the highest possible standard because their own reputations now depended on his success. He said they were more useful than friends precisely because they had something to prove. Historians now call that cabinet the greatest ever assembled in American history, and they credit Lincoln's presidency one of the most consequential in the history of that nation. in large part to the productive friction of surrounding himself with people who are never simply going to agree with him. This is what this law is actually teaching you. Your enemies are not a threat to manage. They are a resource to understand. So how do you actually apply this? In your career, in your business, in the professional friendships you have built and the ones that have burned you. Here are 3 moves. Sit with each one. Move 1. Separate emotional trust from strategic trust right now. Emotional trust is what you give to the people who hold your heart. The ones you call at 2 a.m. when everything is falling apart. The ones who know your history, your wounds, your full story. Strategic trust is something entirely different. It is what you give to people based on track record, demonstrated accountability, and aligned incentives, not feelings, evidence. The catastrophic mistake, the one that ended the business in the story we open with, is giving both automatically to the same person simply because you love her. From today, before you share a business plan, a financial decision, a career move, or a new vision, ask yourself one question. Not, do I love this person? Not, has she been a good friend to me? Ask, has her track record shown me that she can hold my strategy without leaking it, competing with it, or quietly undermining it when her own insecurities are triggered? If the answer is yes, share freely. If the answer is no, share love. Not strategy. You can do both simultaneously, without guilt. Move 2. Understand what your critics give you that your supporters cannot. Your supporters will celebrate you. Your critics will sharpen you. And here is the uncomfortable truth. You need both, but for completely different things. The next time someone in your industry criticizes your work, your pricing, your approach, or your positioning, before you dismiss them or protect your ego, ask one question. Is there even a 10% chance they're right? Because if a person who actively wants to see you fail has managed to identify a genuine weakness in what you are building, that is the most valuable intelligence you can receive. They found the crack before your real competition did. Use it, fix it, strengthen it, and never, ever let them know that you listened. Move 3. Convert your most vocal critic into your most powerful ally. This is the advanced move, and it works because of a very specific truth about human psychology. When you take someone who has publicly opposed you and you bring them into your corner, not by capitulating or shrinking, but by genuinely engaging with their perspective and making them feel heard and respected, 2 things happen. First, they become unexpectedly loyal because you did something most people would never do. You respected them when you had every reason not to. That does something to a person. Second, they become your most credible public defender because every single person who watched them criticize you will now watch them advocate for you. And that conversion, that visible shift from opponent to ally, is more powerful than anything a lifelong supporter could ever say on your behalf. Your oldest supporters are expected to be in your corner. A converted critic is irrefutable evidence that you are someone worth changing your mind about. Now I want to address something directly, because I know some of you are sitting with the story from the beginning of this video, and it still hurts. This law is not asking you to become someone who doesn't love deeply. It is not asking you to stop trusting people. It is not asking you to approach every friendship with a contract and a contingency plan. It is asking you to love wisely, to understand that the depth of your love for someone does not automatically make them qualified to be your strategic partner, and that protecting your vision, even from the people you love, is not a betrayal of the relationship. It is a protection of it. Now, let me give you the research, because this is not just wisdom. This is science. A study from Stanford University's Graduate School of Business found that diverse advisory networks, ones that deliberately included people with opposing viewpoints and competitive motivations, produce significantly better decision-making outcomes than supportive, homogeneous ones. In other words, the people who agreed with you were not making you better. The people who challenged you were. And from Harvard Business Review, an analysis of early-stage business failures found that companies where the founders' closest advisors were personal friends without formal accountability structures. We're 52% more likely to fail in the first 3 years than companies where advisors have been selected for expertise and held roles with real stakes in the outcome. Friendship without accountability is not a business strategy. It is a liability wearing the face of loyalty. Here is what I need you to sit with after this video ends. Your friends love the version of you that exists right now. And most of the time, that love is genuine and worth protecting and worth being grateful for. But sometimes, not always, but sometimes the people who love you most are only comfortable with a version of you that still needs them. Your critics, your competitors, your professional rivals, they are already relating to the version of you that is capable, threatening, and becoming. They are bracing for who you are growing into. There is a version of this law that creates paranoia and isolation. We're not building that. What we are building is discernment, the ability to love widely and trust strategically, to keep your heart open and your inner circle intentional, to receive criticism as intelligence, not attack, and to understand that the people pushing hardest against you are sometimes doing more for your growth than the ones standing softly beside you. You don't need fewer relationships. You need smarter ones. Guard your strategy like you guard your peace. Both are yours. Both are sacred. And both deserve to be protected with the same fierce intentionality. This is Law 2 of 48. And every single law in this series has been taken apart and rebuilt, specifically for the woman who is done being caught off guard by how the game works. If this video gave you something real today, share it with a woman who is currently giving her strategy to someone who has only earned her love. She needs to hear this. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because next week we are talking about Law 3. And the lesson is this: the moment you tell people your plans, you give them the power to stop them. I will see you then.